You'll have to excuse me if my eyes are a little bit dead inside right now. I just got back from surfing, which you would think would be a refreshing thing, and I would get back more recharged and ready to go than ever, but that's not exactly what happened. I'm like not a super confident surfer yet. Like I know how to stand up and everything, but I still struggle a little bit with reading waves and like paddling into waves and stuff. So, like if there's a lot of people out there, or if the waves are any higher than like 3 feet above the water, I just like kind of get beat up and don't know what to do. So I figured today would be a great day to go out and get some reps in, get some practice, and random 11 a.m. on the middle of the week. Surely there's not going to be any people out there, right? 54 people in the water. I counted. So I spent the whole time paddling around people and trying to find somewhere to be out there in the line. And I fortunately managed to not run into anybody. You're probably thinking, wow, Jesse, that's really impressive. Are you just like a god at dodging people or something? No, well, I managed to accomplish that by not catching any waves. When I first got out there, I was just like, okay, well, there's two things you can do. There's on one side of the spectrum, there's running into a bunch of people. On the other side of the spectrum, there's not getting any waves at all and being on your own. And apparently, I lean toward the latter end of the spectrum. But that's not why I'm here to talk at all today. I actually wanted to just follow up on some thoughts I had from the video about different kinds of contracts, where I talked about some of the frustrations that I have with a traditional 40-hour work week. And I realized after I thought about what I said, it was kind of a downer. Like I made it sound like pretty much I'm just hate working 40 hours and like can't get any motivation no matter what I do. And like I don't regret anything I said in that video because that was the frustration there was something I wanted to channel into something. But it's not all doom and gloom either. So I wanted to talk today kind of a little follow up about things that I've been thinking about recently that have helped me address that lack of motivation and sort of answer the question like if you the viewer are in a traditional corporate job or have a normal 40-hour work week and anything that I said resonated with you about having a hard time finding a reason to do your best work or struggling with like just bureaucracy and process and whatever things moving slowly, then maybe some of the things that I've been thinking through for myself can help you because I've felt all of that extremely strongly and I'm very passionate about that, as you saw. But at the same time, I have still managed to do some really great work for my company and I've done some really exciting things. And I want to talk through how I have managed to do that. None of these things, by the way, are necessarily my own original ideas. A lot of what I'm about to tell you is stolen straight from a great Dr. K and the Prime Gem interview podcast thing, which I would encourage you to check out. Shout out to them. And I'm also not an expert on this in any way. I'm very early in my career. But still, my personal experience is my own, and maybe it'll help you. So the video that I'm referencing was actually about burnout in software engineering specifically. That was sort of like the niche of it. But a lot of the stuff there is has helped me think through these questions about motivation, about why it's so difficult for me to do a 9 to 5, and how you can think through that and be able to fight against it. So, let's get into it. The first thing that they said is there's never one singular cause for burnout. Um, it's always a combination of things personal to you that you're responsible for, as well as things about your environment that are compounding the problem together. So anybody that says like I'm burned out at work because my deadlines are too tight or something, not really the full picture. Like, almost certainly, that's a simplification of what's going on. So that's an important thing to realize. And also, that means there's things you can change about the way that you think about your work, about the way that you show up every day, what mindset you have that can improve things. So it's not just your environment. Ideally, you would need to fix both. But let's get into it. So, said you might think the most common way to burn out in a job is to work too hard, but that's apparently just not true, which was really eye-opening for me and helped me kind of validate my own experience a little bit in that the hardest things for me about my job isn't necessarily the deadlines, although sometimes every once in a while it can get really tight. Don't get me wrong, but regardless, the hardest thing is actually just like, why am I doing this? What is it for? What is the higher purpose here? And if I don't have that, then that's really difficult to work through. So the most common thing that causes burnout is actually work that is wasted. So creating something at your job that then gets like the program gets scrapped, or sending a message and then having to deal with a bunch of automated responses before you get to actually talk to somebody and get done with whatever it is. That's the biggest problem by far. Second thing is lack of autonomy. So being forced to build something exactly how your employer wants it to be built instead of doing it the way that you think is like wisest, basically. So you start to feel like a robot after a long time of doing that. Third thing, this is more on yourself as opposed to your environment, is kind of your mindset being based around, I'm doing this thing so that in the future I receive this reward, which frames everything that you're doing as essentially an obstacle that you have to get through, as opposed to like an opportunity that you have in the present moment. Does that make sense? So it's like, I need to get through all of these things so that in a year I can hopefully get a raise. Versus, I get to do this today for X and Y. Does that make sense? Fourth thing would be causing burnout, escapism. So like spending a lot of time scrolling social media or playing video games, which like neither of those things are wrong necessarily, but doing that as a way to avoid confronting the problems and just checking out, basically. Big thing that can cause burnout, and this one's really interesting, is trying to work less, because you'll find out that no matter how much you slow down your work, that's most likely not the root problem, unless you're in an extremely toxic environment and like are given deadlines that are simply impossible. But most likely it's just going to be you're producing less and feeling less fulfilled, but yet the same problems of wasted work or lack of autonomy or all the other things are still prevalent. And so what will be better is, instead of trying to work less, adding a side project that you work on after work that's like adjacent to what you do, but something you're passionate about and you own. That's sort of what I have in working on my video games right now. That's like adjacent to what I do as a software engineer. It means more programming, not less, but that actually has helped me enjoy programming at work more, interestingly enough. Sixth thing is not giving yourself space to check out of work. So like constantly thinking about it outside of hours. Stressing about deadlines when you get home at 5 p.m. Thinking about conversations with your boss, thinking about upcoming meetings. Definitely guilty of that one. you have to be able to like separate your work environment, and that I realize has been compounded by working from home a couple days a week. And then the last thing is sort of like tying your ego to what you do at work. So like something about yourself that you're trying to prove through your job. Like I am a good programmer and I'm going to prove that by doing this project. And now you've tied part of your identity to your work, which can be very toxic. So all of those things together are, they're saying, sort of like the main causes of burnout. And by addressing those things, you can hopefully. It is so hot in here. Give me a second. I'm sweating so much. Okay, that's a lot better. I don't know if you guys saw that. I just felt like I kept on sweating and I'm gonna like do this the whole time. Oh my God. Okay, let's get back into it. So those are the main reasons that you can struggle with burnout at work. Some of that is very tied to my thoughts about 40-hour work weeks in general, about tying your success to a set number of hours as opposed to the success of what you're creating, not having ownership of your work, all that stuff that we talked about. So I basically like thought through all of these points in light of those things to try to figure out what's the actual root cause here of why it's so hard to clock in at 9, clock out at 5, and do my best work that whole time. So number one, work is work that's wasted. Well, there were a couple of projects at work that like did kind of get not canned, but like not used very effectively, which was kind of depressing. But I think the biggest wastes of work that I've struggled with are corporate processes, like long reviews that don't lead to much improvement to the product. Just like dumb systems that we have in place that are, I mean, it's not like unusually bad. It's just like how, you know, how office work goes, generally speaking. Working on like old code that's been outdated for a long time. Not being able to use AI due to like privacy concerns or whatever, that can be. I don't mean AI like like images or anything like artist stuff. I'm talking about just like using like Copilot or whatever to help with actually writing code on the back end. Um, yeah, not having access to any of like the modern tools that make programming easier. It's kind of frustrating. But the biggest waste of work to me is being forced to work for 40 hours a week arbitrarily, even though coding productivity kind of comes and goes in waves. And then that and not having any connection between the amount of effort that I put in and the reward that I personally get out of it. Not that everything's about me, but like, you know, if you have there's not the same incentive there, I guess. What I would so kind of like what I would love in an ideal world is that if I work super hard and efficiently at work, then either I would get paid like way more, which is not realistic every year, or better yet, like let me go home early or something and go hang out and relax, similar to like how a school works, or be able to work on my own projects, like go home and work on game dev. And then I'm working on something that I have ownership of, I guess. So that was really helpful to think through. And the second thing, like lack of autonomy, there's some of that. Um, but like it's not that bad really. Uh, and then third one, mindset of obstacles. That one's definitely true. Because like to me, a set number of hours was an obstacle to what I wanted to do, which was to go home and relax or go home and work on games or whatever, which is just a bad way to look at your work, right? Um, So yeah, the other ones were not as important, like to a lesser extent, but that stuff especially was really insightful to me personally. And so kind of once I was able to diagnose that for myself, I've been trying to rethink the way that I think about my day job as an opportunity instead of like as an obstacle. And to think about what's a way that I can look at my work as not wasted, right? Because if I can get through those things in my mind, then I can do really well, actually. So what I did is I wrote a couple of things down on my whiteboard in my office at work. Like, what are the opportunities that I have today that I could look at every day when I sit down at 9 a.m. with my coffee and just be like, I have an opportunity to do all of these things today. And somehow that opportunity has to be tied to a set number of hours, which is the hardest part. So, what I wrote down is every day I have an opportunity to make software better, of course, be able to take the skills that I have as a programmer and improve products, um, provide for my family's future, provide for whatever I want to do with my side projects, with game development stuff. Obviously, hopefully, in some miraculous way, be able to buy a house in like 20 years if I'm lucky. Oh man, kill me. uh, anyway, yeah, provide um help and love my coworkers that I interact with in the office in whatever capacity I can. Okay, it's a good start. Those are things that I have an opportunity to do every day. And if I think about that every day when I sit down, maybe that'll make it a little easier. But that just like that still doesn't fix the problem with the wasted work being working a fixed number of hours in a traditional 9 to 5. That one, the only opportunity I found there that I wrote down, and this is like the most important one out of all of this that like really helped me reframe things in my mind, is every day by working a full 40-hour work week, regardless of whether or not I think that it's efficient or wise or whatever, is an opportunity to live with integrity and grow in my relationship with Christ. That might sound a little bit like abstract, but basically, I have a chance to put aside my own preferences about what I would love to be doing, how quickly I'd like to do it, ignore the the fact that like my personal reward isn't tied to how quickly I get things done, whatever. Put that aside and realize I do have a reward for working this many hours, regardless of all of that. It's just a spiritual reward as opposed to a physical one. And this is going to be something that if you are only like a materialistic person, it's you're not going to find this really in the same way. But for me, as a Christian who wants to honor God with everything I do, I'm trying to reframe it in my mind such that literally my reward is tied to the number of hours I work. In this sense, right? Because by working the number of hours that my boss wants me to, regardless of what I want to do, I have the reward of growing in my integrity and growing closer to God. And that, like, if you think about it like that, maybe it's not that bad, you know? It's still hard knowing that there's a lot of parts of a 9 to 5 job that are kind of wasteful, and it doesn't like just completely change that or anything, but it does kind of give me a reason to keep going even when I don't see the point. And so I just thought maybe that would be worth sharing with you. I'm sure there's somebody out there who's thinks similar to me and is having a hard time with their job, and maybe that can help you out a little bit. I just thought that's my personal story, some of my experiences. Maybe it'll help somebody. Yeah. That's pretty much all I have to say. So it's not all bad, you know?